Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Talk Musicals to Me, a new theatre podcast about musicals and their impact on people. My name is Caroline Sheen and I'm here to quiz some of the leading creatives in the entertainment industry about their relationship with musical theatre and how certain musicals may have influenced their lives in ways you may not even expect. From how they first encountered a musical to musicals they may never even have seen, let's dive in and introduce today's guest to open up and talk musicals to me. Goodness knows how many years ago I was asked to perform in a concert in a cold church in the middle of Knightsbridge. It was a classy affair. Damien Humbly was involved, Joanna Ample, Daniel Boys and Eliza Lumley, who is about to produce Paddington the Musical in the West End. The concert was for a fantastic female composer called Georgia Stitt. I loved singing her work, probably because it was one of the first times I was able to sing something written by a woman from a female perspective, a genuine female perspective. I was thrilled to be asked to sing her work again a few years later with another roster of London theatre legends, Jamie Moscato, Ava Noblezada, Simon Bailey, and a young girl by the name of, Cynthia Erivo. Whatever happened to her?
I think she's gotten on very well.
I think I've run out of name-dropping points now. Georgia's work is truly beautiful. She's produced 5 albums of her own work, all of which I recommend to anyone interested in storytelling through song. As well as composing and writing musicals, Georgia works on Broadway as a music director. She teaches at Princeton. She's a music producer and has a list of credits longer than my arm. But her most incredible project, which I love seeing thrive and grow from this side of the Atlantic, it's grown in importance and impact, is something called Maestra Music. It's a brilliant community of women, female and non-binary composers, musical directors, copyists, orchestrators and arrangers who are underrepresented in the industry. It offers them mentorship, seminars, workshops and resources, but above all, visibility and awareness of the inequality faced by these workers in the theatre world. I am so pleased to welcome Georgia to the podcast today to talk musicals to me and to talk equality to each other. Georgia Stitt, please talk musicals to me. Georgia, how are you?
Oh, I'm so well, Caroline. I feel like after that introduction, we're done. You've said it all.
We're done. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. And what a great excuse to have a reunion with my friend as well.
I know. This is the first time we've done this on Zoom. It's lovely to chat to you and say hi. It's been a fair while since I saw you over here, so it's really great to see you. Really great. I always had such a blast singing your stuff. I actually have one of your songs on my album, on an album called Raise the Curtain, and quite often people come up to me and say that's their favourite song on it. So passing that on to you.
Yay, I won.
No, you did. You're the winner. You're the winner. And, you know, singing in your concerts, and it's just always been an absolute joy. And, you know, one of the main reasons I'm doing this podcast is to talk to creatives in the industry about the musicals out there that have inspired them and influenced them. And I am trying my best to get some kind of equality into my guests, but it is hard. It is such a male-heavy industry. So I'm thrilled to get you on to kind of represent women in the industry, women writers, women composers, and just talk about that perspective as well. Because, you know, historically, it's just such a male-led business, and that needs to change, which is, I'm really excited that you're leading the way.
I'm so glad. It's a tall order to be asked to represent an entire swath of humans. And yet, I mean, I can only speak for myself, except that in the course of working on Maestra, I have gotten to know so many other women and non-binary people who do work in music departments and often feel like they can't quite figure out how to get their work to the finish line. And so there are a lot of reasons why that we can get into, but you're right. Part of what I have been really pleased to be able to do is build an organization that gives them visibility. Our mission statement is that we provide support, visibility, and community for the women and non-binary people who make music in the theater, and getting to know them. And then just anytime you have to face a challenge, knowing that you're not alone doing it, that not everyone has to be the person at the front of the line doing it for the first time, but we can all lean on our, we'll call it sisterhood, though the word has gotten more expansive than that. We lean on our allies to help us be seen and heard together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is exciting to see. I follow you on Instagram, and every time there's a new Broadway opening, there's this sort of swathe of photographs on the Instagram post about the Maestra community that are involved in each opening. So that's great because we just don't see it otherwise. It is quite invisible, isn't it, behind the scenes?
That's the Maestra Music Org Instagram account. And we do celebrate all of our members who are in Broadway shows. I mean, with luck and support and time, we'll be able to do more than just Broadway, the national tours and the off-Broadway and the West End and, all of the theater that's made everywhere. But we have tried very hard at Maestra to stay positive, that our messaging is positive. And sometimes rather than pointing out what we know is like, there's only one woman on that entire team, instead of making a negative post that's like, look how bad this is, we'll just celebrate the one woman. And when you see that in comparison to the post from last week that had 8 women, you feel something about that. So that's part of our positive messaging, and also celebrating the people who are doing the work.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, Georgia, let's get straight into my questions.
Fantastic.
What I love is I have the same 10 questions every week, but it takes people on totally different journeys. So let's see where we get taken. The first question is, how did you and musical theatre first meet? What was your first experience of going to see a musical?
I think the first thing that I ever saw was Peter Pan. And I was very young, and I'm not sure that I really remember much of it, but my mother tells me that story. I remember finding musicals through cast albums when I was a teenager, and like middle school and high school, 11, 12, 13-ish. And I remember listening to records. You could check albums, vinyl albums out of the library, and I would check them out, bring them home, listen to them, sometimes record them myself, totally steal them onto cassette tapes that I did not put on the internet or anything, but just a way that I could continue to listen to them over and over again.
Just something we needed to do, wasn't it, in those days?
To learn them. I wasn't that young, but I remember when I was a bit older, listening to Into the Woods over and over and over again to memorize the lyrics. I needed to learn Giants in the Sky, and I needed to be able to speak all of the lyrics and understand them. And for me, it was a way of learning how musicals work and what they were doing by listening. And then also, I was a pianist. I am a pianist, and I always found my way into musicals through playing them, through the sheet music, playing the vocal selections. And as I got older, I would coach auditions and play auditions, and, as many entry-level pianists. And I was a good sight reader. So a lot of times I would sight read at a coaching or even at an audition and make my way through something, learning it as I go, and then making a note, like I have to go home and study that and know what that is and understand it better. So I don't think I really saw a lot of musicals until I was older. In high school, I was in, believe it or not, in my small town in Tennessee, we did The King and I.
Wow.
This is a thing now that would be very hard to justify.
Yeah.
But I was in a production of The King and I was in Little Shop of Horrors. I think I played in the pit for Little Shop of Horrors. I was in Oklahoma, a lot of those older ones. And then when I started doing summer stock in college, I was always on the music team. And that was where I really learned musicals, was through reading the scores and playing the piano and conducting and learning how a music department works. And the whole time thinking, somebody wrote these, what it would be involved to write a musical? Like how does that work?
Yeah.
And just week after week after week, looking at musicals and trying to understand how they were crafted and what made them work.
Yeah. I loved what you were saying about how you had to learn the lyrics for Into the Woods. I wonder how much is lost now with the fact that we can stream all these cast albums, because I remember I would get CDs, like physical CDs of all these great shows, and they would have the booklets inside them with the complete lyrics in them, and I would devour them. I could do you a one-woman Miss Saigon. It would be highly inappropriate, but I could do that for you if you wanted one day.
Well, I'll do The King and I, and we'll both just be canceled.
Yeah, totally. And I remember when I did my album, I was absolutely determined that there was going to be a booklet with the lyrics. Mm-hmm. They were something really special. And I know people can download lyrics now from the internet. And I just hope that there are those people out there that are still going, I need to know the words.
Oh, it's such a loss. It's such a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a record player, and we now in my house collect albums and have an experience of sitting on the couch and taking the album out of the jacket and putting it on and listening to it and reading what's on the liner notes. We're very old retro people. But the same thing with my album albums, I've always made a booklet. That is part of the storytelling for me, is like, what is the imagery that the artist has determined is part of how you want this art to be received? Not just what are you hearing, but what are you seeing, and what do you read, and really, what font are you using? And it's all part of the storytelling.
Absolutely.
And it's really a lost art, I think, that we can't consume it that way. And we don't when is the last time you sat down and listened to a whole album, like took the whole thing in, as opposed to just spot checking or listening to this song or that song? When I make an album, I think, what is this experience from top to bottom? If you put it on, what is song number 1? And by song number 4, you'll be ready for a change. And if something doesn't show up until song number 11, it might get buried. And in the same way that we think about musicals, the musical arc, and like what needs to happen by the end of the first act, and what we call the 11 o'clock number, and what is the energy of this experience, is something that the creators think very carefully about, and that's all gone.
And with it being streamed, it just loses it, doesn't it? I do listen to albums still, but it is being streamed, and it's usually in the car. So we went on a long car journey last week, and I think we did the whole of Come From Away. We did most of Legally Blonde, I think. I have a 12-year-old, so it's all things that she loves and something that would get her off the iPad.
And do you listen to an album for pleasure, or do you listen for learning?
I used to do both. It was for pleasure and learning when I was growing up and I was into it all. Like you say, you wanted to learn the lyrics for Into the Woods and stuff. I used to go up to my room and just listen to loads of stuff and sing along. So I was doing both at the same time. But I feel like now it's my job. I feel like it's not so much of an enjoyment thing when I listen to albums. It is a work thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something you lose when something goes from a hobby to a career. It's not something you can't distance yourself from enough to enjoy,
Yeah, I do know.
Yes. I was speaking to somebody else about this week, about having your hobby become your career. Then you have to kind of find a new hobby. What do I do now? Oh, I'll read a history book, or I'll do some gardening. Yeah, gardening. There we go. I think we said that at the exact same time. So my second question is, what was the first musical you were personally involved with? So on stage, that would have been The King and I.
On stage, I think Oklahoma was the first one.
Oh, Oklahoma. Great.
What I remember about that is that I was in the ensemble, and I remember learning the alto part, singing, and then I could also play it on the piano, and people were surprised that I could play it on the piano. And so I wound up being kind of a de facto coach. People would say, can you help? Can you plunk that out? Can you help me learn it? So I think as early as I was a theater person, I was sort of working as a musician in the theater.
What age did you start piano lessons?
I was 7. In some ways, that's late. I mean, when you speak to people who become classical pianists, that's late. But the short version of the story is that there was a babysitter in my neighborhood, and my mother dropped me off at her house sometimes, and she had a piano. And one time my mother came to pick me up, and the babysitter said, she's just been at the piano the whole time. She's just plunking out songs and like trying to figure out how it works. And the babysitter was like, you should probably get her some piano lessons. And that must have been when I was 7, and we did, and life went on from there.
And was it ever a chore? Was it ever like, oh God, I have to practice, I hate the piano? Was it ever like that, or is it always just something you felt was a calling?
I wouldn't say that I knew it was a calling. It has always come easily to me. It makes sense. I majored in music theory and composition. Music theory just makes sense to me. And I know some people struggle with it, but tax forms, struggle with tax forms, and other people look at them and they just make sense. So I think, information comes to us in the ways that it comes to us. But my mother tells a story that when I guess I must have been in high school, I asked to quit piano lessons. And she said that I could quit, but that I had a commitment through the school year, that I had signed up. And there's always a piano recital, and we do a little competition in May, June, at the end of the academic year. And my mother said, this isn't about piano so much as it is about commitment. You've made a commitment to your teacher that you will be in the recital and you'll participate in this. And then over the summer, if you don't want to continue, that's fine. And by the time we got to the recital, I had gotten through the hard part. I think when we want to quit, maybe not for everyone, but for me, the times when I feel like I want to quit, or I've hit a moment where it got really difficult. I'm not feeling successful. I don't see how I'm ever going to learn this music. I'm not enjoying the work of it. But by the time we got to the recital, I was good at it again. And then I didn't want to quit.
Yeah.
And I think about that so often, that was such a good parenting model. I really do think if the summer had rolled around and I said, well, I hated that and I want to quit, my mother would have let me. But I didn't. I think she saw something about what the arc of commitment might look like.
That's awesome that it wasn't about, no, keep playing the piano, you're good at it. It was, you've committed to this, you have to see it through. And then once that's up, then see how you feel. I love that.
Yeah, we've made a commitment to your teacher, that she has built a recital on the fact that you'll be there.
Yeah.
Let's not let her down.
So when you were doing Oklahoma and you were sort of then becoming a like vocal coach, not a vocal, well,
Yeah, a bit.
When would you say was the first musical you were involved with officially as a music director or a pianist? When did you sort of step off the stage and commit to that?
High school and college, I probably thought I was going to do both. The interesting thing to me is that I was always a music person. And so I was in the marching band and I played the piano. When I went away for the summer to camp, I went to music camp and I saw the drama club happening over there and I saw the school musicals, but I didn't have time to be in them. I couldn't commit the hours because of the other things that I was doing. And that continued into college. I took acting in college and then I auditioned for plays and I saw the schedule. At the audition, they give you the schedule. And I thought, I can't do this. I have all of my music major commitments. I can't even make the performances. And so I wound up not doing shows. And I think about that in terms of how we educate young people now, that they're forced to make decisions so early, especially as someone who I have two teenage daughters, and they also have had to make choices. My younger daughter is in the dance company at her school. And because of that, she can't do theater. She can't, she's even asked me about piano lessons are, a burden because she is in the dance company every day after school.
That's a lot.
She loves it and she's going to be a dancer and she's having a lot of success and maybe finding her identity. But if it turns out not to be her identity, she hasn't had a chance to do the sampling of everything else because she had to decide.
Yeah.
I think in her case, she's very happy. But in my case, I didn't find theater until later. I did summer stock in college. I had a conducting teacher in college who said, I work at a musical theater every summer. This was after my sophomore year, my second year in college. I have a summer stock theater that I work at every summer and they hire rehearsal pianists. I bet you would love it. Do you want to come make a living just playing piano in a theater all summer? And I really didn't even know that existed. But it was one of those 9 shows in 11 weeks. And the first show we did was Gilbert and Sullivan, and we did Trial by Jury, and we did Pirates of Penzance, and then we did an operetta, we did The Merry Widow. And then suddenly we were into like more jazz, like Cy Coleman, Guys and Dolls kind of shows.
This sounds awesome.
It was wonderful.
This sounds absolutely awesome. Like a potted history of musical theatre.
And it was on Cape Cod and on the beach all summer. And so you'd rehearse one show in the day and then go swim the ocean and then have dinner and then go do your show at night. And then everybody was sleeping with everybody. I mean, it was like exactly what college is supposed to be.
Great stuff.
And I was majoring in music composition. I was thinking like a composer, playing the piano for my living. And that was the summer that I was watching the musicals go by. And, some of them were computer notated, some of them were handwritten. For The Merry Widow, I was reading a full score and having to reduce the full score. And I thought there's so many different ways that this music is communicated. And yet the end result is the same audience is going to buy a ticket and see the same actors do it week after week after week. How does this work? Like, can I just put notes on the page and I'm writing a musical? So I came home that summer and said to my composition teacher, I want to write a musical.
Wow. Was that an option for you?
I had 2 composition teachers, were very supportive, but they didn't know anything about it. And what I wrote wound up somewhere between a musical and an opera. And I went to Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee, and there's a school of music there. And so the Vanderbilt Opera Theater performed my musical that had like some song and dance numbers and some more operetta numbers. And it, was a mishmash of things that you'll never hear.
Opera is not something I associate with Nashville at all.
There is a whole classical musical scene in Nashville. It is buried under what has become the country music capital of the world. But there are a lot of musicians and there is a lot of music in Nashville for sure. Even more so than when I was in there. Anyway, so yeah, that piece was just my first experience trying to write something bigger than a song or a song cycle or a string quartet or the things I was writing for school. But what is it like to sustain a musical idea over an entire evening? What is that? And so this musical opera thing was what I wrote when I, finished college. And then that was the piece that got me into grad school at NYU, the musical theater writing program. And I got a master's degree. And I would say that is where I really learned the trade.
And when you were there, was that like crossing over with like the performances? Were you able to like work with the musicals that the musical theater program was doing as well? Or were you just working on your own stuff?
In grad school at NYU, that program allowed me to move to New York. And so the departments are not in communication with each other very much. So it's not like I was working with other departments at that school, right? There were 16 of us in this grad school program. We were all writing musicals. And because I could play the piano and sight read, I wound up being being the de facto pianist. There were two of us. We were the de facto pianists.
Two pianists on a composition course. Everyone else was making it up on what?
Well, I think a lot of people could play. A lot of people could play, but we had, oh, this is so much more than you care about. We had lab every Tuesday and Thursday. So you had to generate new music and perform it for each other on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like if the class was at 10, we would all show up at 9, and I would sit at the piano and play everybody's music for them and then present it. And my friend Randall Ng was the other. Miriam Daly, I guess there were several of us who could do this. And we play the piano for everyone else's pieces. And I mean, I think part of what we're talking about is that my identity and my place in the industry was formed because I was a pianist and a music director who was also a composer. Because by the time I graduated from that program, the teachers in the program had seen how quickly I could work as a pianist and how the music director, you can pull an idea off the page and explain it to the singer, and then they can deliver. There's something about the translation from score to performance that a music director has to do quickly. And so my first jobs as a music director were that my teachers hired me. Polly Penn was my teacher. She hired me to music direct a production of Bed and Sofa. Michael John LaCusa hired me to go to Williamstown and develop a show that he was writing called Broken Sleep. And for at least the first few years, my work was started because the teachers saw me. And probably now that I'm this age, looking back, they probably saw someone young and hungry who wouldn't charge a lot of money and be willing to go sleep in a twin bed in a college dorm room, no problem. Whereas now I probably wouldn't do that work.
Oh, I'm sure it was much more than that.
Sometimes not.
It's always good to be useful, isn't it? But also, I think sometimes being useful, you end up being too useful to be able to kind of progress. Sometimes, I think. I know when I started out in my career, I was doing a lot of understudying. And at one point I had to sort of go, I can't do this anymore because I want to play the parts.
Yes.
And that's when I had to start pushing and sort of go, don't just rely on me to be a good cover. I need to push forward.
Yes. You're not the first actor I've heard say that.
Yeah. Sometimes we just sort of get stuck in that rut of going, oh, I can work because I'm useful to people. But actually, what do I want to do? It's tough, isn't it?
It did take me a long time to learn that I can't write and music direct at the same time. Like I used to think music directing could be how I would make a living. I'd rehearse 10 to 6, and then I would come home in the evening and write my own music. But when I came home in the evening, my brain was full of the music that I had been teaching all day. And I was still trying to solve the problems of the rehearsal process, or I just couldn't clear the palette and work on something of my own. Or I was tired, you know.
No, I absolutely get that.
And I had collaborators angry with me that I continued to take music directing jobs because it didn't leave me any space to write. And now, because I work in both spaces, I rarely do a run of a show. I rarely do 8 shows a week anymore. And part of that is because of parenting and not wanting to be out at night as much. And part of it is I just love concert work and I love building things with singers and special events. But part of it also is if I'm going to be writing, I have to protect that space and not fill it up with other things.
I totally get that. My husband at the minute is just in...
Your husband at the minute?
At the minute. Yeah, sorry. Right now, my husband...
Your current husband.
My current husband has come to the end of his first week of rehearsals for a show, and his mind is so in that music, and it's difficult music, and he's learning, he's going over and over and over and over it. I mean, he's got an idea for a musical that he needs to write. There's no way he's going to be able to do that this next few weeks because his brain is just full of that. So I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of this is a segue. I've been told to work on my segues. So here's my segue. Speaking of doing things over and over again, what is the musical that you might have seen over and over again? I should probably say at this point, Georgia is married to Jason Robert Brown. So I'm going to say, let's not include Jason's shows and let's not include your shows. Is there another musical that you are a repeat attender or a repeat fan of?
Well, thank you for that, because I do think my shows and Jason's shows, I had probably seen those among the super fan levels of having seen those shows
Yeah.
in many incarnations. I mean, I have some funny anecdotal answers. I think it turns out I've seen Mamma Mia quite a lot because both of my daughters have been in it in their schools. I mean, I'm sure I saw it the first time when it was on Broadway. And then I think when I was passing through Las Vegas once, I saw it in Las Vegas. And then my older daughter was in it. And then my younger daughter said, I've been cast in the musical it's Mamma Mia. And we went, no. I mean, yay for you. So that's a funny one to know as well as I do. I have seen Little Shop of Horrors a lot, but I also have worked on it. I have seen Gypsy a lot. Gypsy is so wonderful. Every time I see it, it's like visiting an old friend, and I'm astounded at how well it holds up despite over and over again reiterations. But I've seen it many, many times.
Gypsy comes up a lot, you know. I think Gypsy gets done a lot more on Broadway than it does here. I think it's such a Broadway-based show, isn't it?
I've probably seen it on Broadway 3 or 4 times. I can think of 3 for sure, and there might be another. And then, of course, school productions and regional productions and movies. And I just feel like I know it very well.
It's crazy to me, the whole Mamma Mia thing. I don't know if you know this, but I was in the very first cast of Mamma Mia.
I knew it was in your history.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember that story.
We had no idea, you know, in those days we were rehearsing it on the Holloway Road in the National Youth Theatre of Great Britain, and we were rehearsing it, and we did not know what we were getting into. We knew it was going to be quite good fun because Benny and Bjorn from ABBA were in the room. But then the local school did a kind of evening of all the local schools coming and doing a piece from the show that they were in. And about 3 schools did something from Mamma Mia. And I was like, oh my God, schools are doing it now. And it blows my mind how far it has reached. And it's just wonderful to see. I think it's a really great gateway musical for people. It's the one I take people to see if they've never been to see a musical. I'm like, you need to see Mamma Mia. And it's a great sort of opens the door to all the other lovely musicals out there for them to see. It's fun. It knows what it is.
That's right. I think it's also, it makes people think that jukebox musicals can be that, and so many of them aren't. It sets a standard for what kind of drama you can make out of an existing catalog of music. And there have been so many bad ones that have followed in the footsteps. So I think in comparison to that, it holds a banner of success that I'll grant it.
Yeah.
Reluctantly.
But I think it was the first big one, wasn't it? And obviously many people have tried to copy it. And I just think there was a level of, I don't know if I'd call it sophistication, but Phillida, our director, was incredibly clever at how she listened to the audience in the previews. And that whole show, yes, we put on a show in that first preview, but I think we did 13 previews and 10 of them were different because she listened and she learned from their responses. And it was fascinating to watch that craftsmanship, really. And other jukebox musicals, I think, because Mamma Mia is successful, they expect that one to do the same. And I'm not sure whether the attention to detail is there as much, really, as it was definitely at the beginning of Mamma Mia.
Well, that's such a good example of like the music maker in me responds to like the theater maker there. Like that is such smart theater making. And I think the most successful collaborations are when you have, you know, someone like me who's trying to take care of the score, trying to take care of the music and make sure that the songwriting is doing what it needs to do in collaboration with someone who's trying to make sure that the show is doing what it needs to do. And those are 2 different jobs. And I think so often people either put more value in one or the other, but that collaboration is so key.
And it was massive. It was massive. We had Martin Kosh as musical supervisor and your friend Martin Lowe as music director.
Hi, Martin.
Hey, Martin. It was absolutely, they were in those conversations and it was essential. It was absolutely essential. And I think that came from Benny and Bjorn as well, because I think they have that history of writing other musicals like Chess and the Swedish one that they wrote, Christina. They had experienced that, you know, so it was really interesting. The teamwork is always what makes a show. I think that collaboration is so important. Yeah, I think it's, I've got to think of another segue now. Oh no, I'm just going to say, did Mamma Mia make you laugh? Because if it made you laugh, which other musical has made you laugh the most and which musical made you cry the most?
That's a great segue.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I just recently saw Operation Mincemeat, which is a new musical that came from London, and it is hilarious. I loved it. It made me laugh. And I was aware how rarely musicals make me laugh. Even there's a whole genre, musical comedy, and often the joke moment goes by and I do the kind of nod like, oh, right, that was funny. That was meant to be funny. It takes a lot. For me, I think surprise makes me laugh. You know, when you think you're headed in one way and then what actually happens is in the opposite direction, that can make me laugh. But that happens more often for me in plays than in musicals. And I think maybe it's because music is taking you on a path. I think it's not impossible, but it's harder to surprise with music. The lyrics might make you laugh, but when the music also makes you laugh, that is very funny. And that happens rarely for me. There are classic musicals, like A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum has always made me laugh. What else?
It's such a tight show, isn't it?
It is.
I did it. Was that with That was with Martin Lowe as well. Hi, Martin. I did it with him. And the music is sometimes incredibly short. Some of the songs are so short, but it's all you need. And I think they stripped so much from it, I'm guessing, in out of town tryouts. And the book is so lean.
Mm-hmm.
No beat is wasted. It's a really beautifully crafted musical farce, really, isn't it? It's so funny.
Well, I think even when you think about crafting a funny song, it's about how do you sustain an idea over time? Like when you said the songs are so short, I think, right, because once you've made the joke, you either have to reinvent the joke and get a play on the turn of phrase or the, you know, the double entendre of the word or something, or you have to have a whole new idea. I mean, with only the greatest respect, Amanda Green has a song and the title of the song is If You Leave Me, Can I Come Too? It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think once you've said it the first time, how do you continue to, like, once the audience knows that that's the punchline,
Yeah.
it's harder to sustain the joke.
It's a one-liner.
It's a great, great song. Jesse Tyler Ferguson sings it.
Oh, fabulous.
It's on the list of things like, oh, I wish I had thought of that. And also, how do you sustain that? I think Amanda Green is a very, very funny lyricist. I'll list her as one of my favorites. Yes.
I'm going to look that up straight away when I get off this. So which show made you cry the most? Do you cry easier than laughing?
I do. I am quicker to the deep feeling. I'll say Sunday in the Park with George always makes me cry. Light in the Piazza makes me cry. Parade makes me cry. Yeah. I think for me, it's when you are rooting for a character, you know, like you are so deeply connected to the journey of the character and you have grown along with what the character is trying to do. And then for me, it's actually feeling the pain of the character, either failing at that thing or redirecting or learning something, as opposed to like, success, I got it, yay. That feels inevitable. There's the Joseph Campbell hero's journey of like, great, you want your character to get what he or she set out to achieve. But there's something about the struggle along the way, having to let someone go or having to deal with failure or something that cracks open my heart. And as a writer, what you want the audience to feel is like, I'm going to show you the truth of what this journey can be. And hopefully it makes you feel resonant to some experience that you've had similar. And that to me is where the crying comes. Like I recognize what that might have been, what you wanted it to be and what it wasn't. And then maybe even if it's like in Light in the Piazza, there's a redirect, you know, at the end when the mother is like realizing the cost of this journey, but it was inevitable. And you feel that with her. You feel that like the only way is to let someone go, as someone that you love, let her go. Like that's just, of course, that's heartbreaking and human and universal and a beautiful thing to write about.
It really is. My introduction to Light in the Piazza was on Broadway and I watched it at the Lincoln Center and adored it. Then I was lucky enough to be in it here.
Yes.
And I do listen to it a lot, but I'm still kidding myself. I'm still listening to Clara's stuff. I really need to start listening to Margaret's stuff and seeing it from her perspective because let's face it, Clara disappeared from my grasp a while back.
But you got to do her. I mean, what a wonderful thing for an actor to like grow from one role into another role. I think that must be an amazing thing to like be able to discover a piece again. Like, should you get to do it?
And to now see it from a mother's perspective and to be a mum as well, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I want to listen to it again now. I might just be even more brokenhearted. Oh my goodness.
I just got to do a concert with Vicky Clark and we did Fable. And first of all, it's a beast to play, but I was thrilled that I was able to play it with the Boston Pops Orchestra. I really got to play it with a full orchestra and it was wonderful. Ted Sperling wrote a new orchestration and it was joyful. But also Vicky, in the rehearsal process, Vicky told me what she was thinking every line. She was like, this is what's happening here and this is what's happening here and this is and I made notes and she said, someday you'll coach someone else and you can tell them like, this is what I think of when I sing this word. And it was a master class for me just to get to have that experience with her.
Wow. So if I start learning that song, I might give you a call, Georgia, and get those notes off you if that's all right.
That's right. I'll just send you screenshots of my score with her.
Yeah, thank you. That would be fascinating. That would be so fascinating to read. Wow. I didn't realize I was reading some stuff about Vicky Clark. She actually is a director. She was a director before she was a performer, I think.
She is. She just directed Love Life at the Encore series, which is, you know, where they do short runs of old old, I would say, blow the dust off the score, those sorts of musicals. But they did Love Life with Brian Stokes Mitchell and Kate Baldwin, my good friend Kate Baldwin. Vicky directed that. I actually saw a production of Light in the Piazza that she directed many years ago, a college level production. But it was wonderful to watch her pass on to her students what she had learned from her experience.
Oh, that's fascinating. When you see something and that person has been involved in it, that must be really exciting because you're getting something, it's almost from the horse's mouth, isn't it? Whatever she got from Adam and Craig and everyone who worked on it, to get that into another production is really exciting. My final question for this half is my confession question. And my confession is I have never seen a professional production of West Side Story. I know that's unforgivable. Is there a show that you have never seen that you regret not seeing? Is there something out there you missed or something you would like to have seen in the past?
Well, my funny answer is I've never seen Cats. I've never seen it.
They did a movie.
And that's the deal breaker, is I did see the movie, at which point I thought, okay, I don't need to see Cats. That's done. Let's see what else. There are some musicals that have great spectacle. Like I didn't see Spider-Man on Broadway, and I sort of wish I had, just to see the legend of that piece. That's such an expensive piece with such theatricality. I didn't see Cape Man, which is Paul Simon's piece, and I sort of would have loved. I heard him speak about it in a podcast once, and I thought, oh, I'm kicking myself because I was in New York and I didn't see it. I wish I had seen that. I don't think I realized what it was. I think for me, it's less about specific productions of things. You know, like there are many shows that I've seen them at some point along the way, or I've worked on them at some point in the way, but maybe I missed a certain revival or something. Those are the big ones, I think. We'll say Spider-Man.
I read a book about Spider-Man. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was by the writer of the musical. And it was basically like a diary of his experience on that musical. It is crazy.
I bet.
Our business is mental.
It is. Why would anyone choose this?
Why are we doing this?
Why are we in this business?
I say I read the book. I listened to the audiobook of it.
That counts. I think that counts.
Yeah, it's the guy who wrote it also narrating it. And it was so colourful and so vivid that I feel like I've seen that show. I have never ever seen that show, but I feel like I've seen it. I would highly recommend it.
Maybe if more of us had seen it, it would have done better.
Yeah. But I mean, they had like so many previews, something like 100 or something like that, maybe even more. I can't remember now, but it's absolutely gobsmacking to me, the lore of that show and the amount of experience of some of the creatives on it. And yet, even then, even with all this experience behind them, it's still sometimes musical theatre is this pipe dream that sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, there's another question later on that I ask about what's the secret to a great musical. And I think everybody tries to find that in something, but sometimes it's just so difficult to pin down. The failure is inevitable and massive when it's something that on paper looks like it would be brilliant.
Yeah, and there's no rule book.
No.
If there were a rule book, we'd all be checking it. We'd all be like flipping through like, oh wait, we missed number 37. We have to go back and get number 37.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a fickle mistress, I think, is what we've got. Now, before we break for a little advertisement, I have to ask you, as a Brit, because the American system is so different from ours, you say you were in a marching band in school, but you play the piano. How do you march with a piano?
Oh. That's actually a really smart question, and I didn't realize that I hadn't explained that. When I was a teenager, I learned how to play every instrument in the marching band.
Okay, so you learned all the lyrics to Into the Woods and all the instruments in the world.
And all the instruments in the marching band, yes. So I can't play strings because we didn't have an orchestra at my school. I can write for them now because I've learned, but I don't have any hands-on experience. But I was actually quite good at the clarinet. This is going to take longer than you want, but clarinet, flute, saxophone are all very similar. I learned how to play all of them. In my school, it was very limited what one could do with that. And certainly if you were going to march in the marching band, you were not going to have a solo on any of those instruments. And so my band director said, if you want a solo, you need to play the trumpet or the mellophone, which is the marching French horn, or the trombone. And so I said, okay. So I picked the mellophone because there were some real crackerjack trumpet players and I thought I'm not going to compete with them, but there was no one else playing the mellophone. So I learned the mellophone. So then because I could do that, I could play the French horn, and then the fingerings were the same as the trumpet. So I played the trumpet a little bit. And then I thought, well, I have to teach myself what the positions on the trombone are so I can at least get sound out of the trombone. And just to complete the picture, I learned how to play the tuba. And I don't think I knew it at at the time, but all of that was leading me to be a composer. Like it is much easier for me to think as an orchestrator now because I know what the instruments can do. I know where the hard break is, the bridge across the clarinet. Like I know what would be hard to play, and I know what open strings are and what the partials are on the trumpet. And you can learn that in school. You can learn that from a book. But I had like a semester on each instrument just to keep me from getting bored because I always knew that I was going to be a pianist, and I couldn't do that during the school day. So I thought, well, how can I keep my musical brain occupied? There are pictures of me playing a marching mellophone solo in a marching band uniform at age 16 or 17.
I have a picture of you as like Dick Van Dyke at the opening of Mary Poppins, just like literally a one-man band playing every single
You're
instrument.
right. I can't do them all at the same time.
I bet you could if you tried.
Now I'm thinking about it. But it is a fun party trick to pull out like a flute and know how to play it, or, you know.
And what was your accessibility to these instruments? There's a big drive over here. I feel like Andrew Lloyd Webber is actually one of the people kind of at the head of this to get musical instruments back into schools because it's, you know, they're expensive and they're hard to come by. Was that something you could just, I want to play the tuba, it's in school, I'll borrow one? Was that the case?
Yes, it was the case.
Wow. And is that because of the marching band?
I think it must have been because of the band system. First of all, it was a long time ago. I'm old, and so it was a long time ago. And music in the public schools was very different than it is now. But yes, you know, football is the economic driver. I grew up in a small town in Tennessee, and the football team and the competition of the football team and the sales of the concession is a big economic driver for the town. Everybody in the town comes out to the football games. And then the marching band is part of that. So there was a kind of support for the marching band that there never was for the musicals or the classical piano or the ballet or any of that because of its relationship to football. I think that's still true in America. And so the school owned at least one, maybe more, several tubas and several trombones and several mellophones. And so I would learn just enough to be able to get through a semester on one instrument. And then the next semester I would pick something else and cleanse the mouthpiece and have a go at it.
I absolutely love this. I'm going to dream of you with all these different instruments like floating around. When I was a kid, I was really into it. Was when I was sort of starting to get into music. We always learned the recorder first over here.
Yes, yes.
Me and my friend Abigail, we were both like mad about playing the recorder, and we were entering competitions and stuff, and we loved it. And we both decided that when we were older, we would live in a hut by the beach, and that hut would be full of every musical instrument ever, and we would be able to play every single one. We don't. She now runs a yoga and Pilates studio.
It sounds like heaven.
It does.
That hut's near the ocean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'll go.
Yeah.
Twist my arm.
You can come join us in our hut by the beach one day.
The hut. Well, I do have, you know, I'm the person who has like right over, I'm showing you because this is a podcast. There's a mandolin and there's a ukulele back behind it. And I do have the instruments on the wall that I can sort of play.
What's that score you have on your music stand?
Oh, that's my next job. It's Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Ooh, fabulous.
I'm writing arrangements and orchestrations for Girls Just Want to Have Fun, the musical.
That sounds like a good title of a song. Great. Thank you, Georgia. Let's have a quick break and we shall be back in 2 shakes of a tail with Georgia Stitt talking musicals to me.
G'day listeners, another show you can find on the Bloop Network is Thrash and Treasure, where legendary artists from Broadway, West End, Hollywood and beyond deep dive into 2 seemingly opposite genres of music, heavy metal and musical theatre. From Tony winners to reality TV contestants, hear a vast range of iconic guests learn about genres of music they've never been exposed to. With over 130 episodes, there's bound to be a silly, sassy and insightful conversation that'll have you reaching for the leather pants and hairspray. And here is a sneak peek. Oh, that's my script. We're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron. That's Steve, and we're on lookout for the... Am I on the right? No, I'm on the wrong one. We're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, and I'm not changing the names to protect the guilty. That's Steve, and we're joined by a sinner, candy-coated. To all his friends, he always seems to be Michael Gibson.
Michael, you've performed in many old theatres around the UK. Have you ever seen a theatre ghost?
Ooh, cue the music.
I haven't, no.
What?
I I think
Oh.
I used to think that I would, and I used to think I believed in all that, and I think now I am a non-believer
Yep.
in all that kind of stuff. And I think they are definitely spooky old places with a lot of history and a lot of phantoms, and ghosts probably do walk those backstages and auditoriums and cupboards and corridors and stuff. But I just don't know. I think I would have seen something by now.
Do they do the ghost light thing on the stage in the UK?
Yeah,
Yeah, they do it everywhere. Yeah, that's a thing. That's
they do it in
happens.
Australia too. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a US thing. I just learned about it recently with my son on stage and stuff. So that was kind of a neat thing I learned about.
Yeah, that's it. Anyways, now before we move on to the musical, I'm a longtime Madness fan. As I said, they're one of my absolute favorite bands. But Our House had always eluded me until this week, but I finally watched it, and I have to say I didn't like it. I fucking loved it. I was so surprised. No, literally, I didn't have very high expectations, I'm going to be honest, because it's a jukebox musical.
Yeah.
Even though it won Best Musical, so did Return to Forbidden Planet, which isn't the best, let's face it. And that's a jukebox musical as well.
Who, ironically, the musical director of Our House was in Return to the Forbidden
All
Planet.
due love and respect. Loved Our House. I loved what they did with it. From the very start, I was cackling because, oh my God, you're in there buying condoms to House of Fun, and the lyrics were so perfect just the whole way. Yeah, well done. I so disappointed I hadn't seen it earlier. I laughed and I even cried at the end. I don't want to spoil it for anybody what happens there,
It's
but
a cool thing, and I mean, apart from that, it's very cool that it was actually filmed and that you and whoever else it is for me gets to see what we did when I was in it. When I was, what is it, 23 years ago this year it is that I was in that show, and it was my first job, very important part of my life and career, and a big start for me, and I got to play that incredible role, and I don't think I'll ever play a role like that ever again, and I certainly haven't. That amount of emotions to play
and running around and quick changes.
running around and just being exhausted and dialogue and singing and also to be in such a wonderful production. And I mean, even the face of the West End's changed these days. I mean, which is the whole of the podcast about, the way things are cast now, and the producers and the money that's made and the tickets that are sold. And ticket prices are all that kind of stuff, which is really dull and boring, and celebrities and everything that puts normal jobbing actors. I don't think I would have got that part today, if I'm going to be honest. I think they would have given it to somebody else who was probably had a lot more followers on Instagram or something stupid like that. So yeah, so it was a wonderful, wonderful thing, and the fact that they filmed it, and I'm really glad you saw it and that you liked it, because it's a really smart, intelligent piece of theatre apart from anything else. That happens to be the back catalogue of that brilliant band and the writing of Tim Firth, and directed by Matthew Warchus, who already was a very established theatre director of wonderful plays and theatre even at a very young age, and then did Our House, and we won the award for that. And then he went on to do things like Matilda, and he is currently the outgoing artistic director of the Old Vic in London.
Yep.
And he is doing a great job there, and it was a really cool thing for me to be a part of, so I'm glad you saw it.
Yes. No, genuinely, I loved it. I've watched it twice already, literally in 24 hours.
Wow.
After it finished the first time, I said, I hate myself like that, because I don't want to like jukebox musicals, because I know that this is the antithesis of what we're doing in theater, with a composer and a lyricist and people workshopping a show and the storyline. And so many of these jukebox musicals are slapped together. They really are. They're just like, what are the hit songs?
I agree. And unfortunately, Our House
wasn't.
Its Achilles heel is that it wasn't that. And it's given other people the confidence to think they can do it too. And most of them get it wrong. And it was incredibly intelligent, woven together. It's a testament to actually how brilliant those songs are that Madness wrote.
Welcome back. We are talking musicals today with tuba, trombone, saxophone, flute, clarinet player, piano player, every player. It's Georgia Stitt. Welcome back, Georgia.
Wow, thank you. I hope I'm not asked to actually do that. I have at one point in my life done that. I could not do it today.
So, you're at school, you're doing the marching band. If you were running a school now, which musical would you put on the school curriculum for every kid to be involved in some way or another? Is there a musical you think that's the one a school should be doing these days?
I think any musical is the answer. I do have one that I will get to in a moment that I think is the right answer to this question. But when both of my daughters went to elementary school, they had all school musical. Everybody, I think 4th, 5th, and 6th graders had to be in the musical every year. So for 3 years, everyone. And there is always the one kid who is the tree, who can't sing and can't move and can't act. And that person just stands there and is the tree. And yet the teamwork of it, the being part of something, the having to like show up early and get into costume together, and the, maybe the tree had lines or maybe not, but the idea that we're all relying on each other in teamwork and we're making something collectively that no person could make individually, I think is great. So I loved it. There were certainly students that was the only time that they will ever be in theater, but they did participate in it. And I think at minimum, it sets you up to be a different kind of audience member. If you remember that one time you were a tree or you were Matilda or you were whatever. So that's that. And then if we're going to talk about the lessons that musical theater can teach, the life lessons, I think for me right now in America, it would be ragtime.
Yes. How important is that right now?
So important. And there was we'll call it a revival. I mentioned before the Encores series where they do these, I like to say old musicals. Some of them ragtime's not that old. It's not like an old Irving Berlin's score, but Ahrens and Flaherty. But they revisited it and it felt as if it could have been written right now, this season. It felt so relevant and so timely. And sort of the whole premise of it is what happens when you divide people into the groups by their identity and they have different experiences, all striving to define what America is, what it means to be American, but they're segregated into the categories in which they've been placed by their identities. It's just beautiful and heartbreaking and painful, and the performances and the songs and the way it makes you feel and the way it teaches empathy and the way it makes you see that people whose lived experiences are different from your own have validity. I mean, what a core lesson that is. Because I am a person of the theater and because I'm me, I think, well, surely everyone feels that way, right? Surely everyone moves through the world with a kind of empathy and a kind of recognizing the significance of other humans. And the more news we get, the more I think, that's not true at all. And it's not unrelated to the fact that we've cut the arts out of our education program, that the kids are not in marching bands or learning how to play instruments or having to participate in musical ensembles or being in shows or singing in choirs. There's something about the collective, like, what does it feel like in a choir when you all have to breathe together and you watch the conductor and you all cut off together? And if one person messes up, the whole thing is off. So we're just dependent on the teamwork of it.
That's actually where this question came from, is I remember watching, there's a guy over here called Gareth Malone who creates choirs in places you don't expect there to be choirs. He's created a military wives choir. And there was one time he went into, I guess, a high school in an area that was struggling. And he made, I think, all the kids that were the most struggling, he put them into the choir. And I remember they worked so hard. They did not want to sing. They did not want to be there at all. But he got these performances out of them. And they went and they sang in a big theatre or stadium. And they all came off stage and they were buzzing. They were absolutely buzzing. The kids that you had seen being these shy, introverted people that just didn't want to speak, didn't want to push themselves forward at all. They were jumping with joy after being on stage and singing with their friends. And I remember turning to Mike, my husband, and saying, that should be compulsory.
Absolutely.
What they have just done, that should be compulsory across the whole world. Everyone should have that lived experience of going on stage, performing, or being part of that performance in any way, being backstage and contributing it, front of house, on the lights, on the sound. It's just something that gives you so much life, I think. And that community feel is so fabulous. And to feel that all together at the same time is really special. So
I agree. I love that. That's the answer, I think. And I think certainly in America, probably globally, like we feel that in sports. I think that's why people love sports, the communal aspect of it. But sports are not for everyone. Not everyone can succeed in sports. Not everyone has that gift. And I think that is why theater winds up attracting people who identify as misfits, like they don't quite fit in somewhere else. And then they find their place in the theater or we'll say the performing arts in general, because they find that they have this talent to be part of a team and part of a community just by showing up and breathing and bringing their truth to the situation. So yes, compulsory, any musical, you can be bad at it. You just have to do it.
yeah, and you'll get so much from it. So much from it. I promise you'll get something from it. Speaking of sports, okay, this is like a weird analogy. There are a lot of people out there who don't really like musical theatre and they like to shout about it. It's that I don't like musicals. I hate musicals. It makes me uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. And we've always said there are musicals out there that I don't like. And because I love musical theatre so much, when I go and see a musical that hasn't worked, I feel like those sports people who support a team and they've lost. They're playing really badly. And I'm like, they've let us down. You don't need to name them. But has there ever been a time when you've gone, oh, that musical, I'm going to give up now. That's it. I'm never doing a musical again.
Yes. In recent seasons. Yes, of course. Of course, we all feel that. For me, it's when you see the commercialism on stage, when you see the production trying to sell you something. And sometimes that's a catalog, sometimes it's a product, sometimes it's the movie it was adapted from. They're just. Somebody thought, oh, I have a great idea for a musical, and someone gave them millions of dollars to make that happen. But it feels like no one ever asked why, or what's the most creative way to tell the story, or why is there music in this story? You know, all those craft questions that I think those of us who make musicals are always asking. Does the story have to be linear? What is the reason why this character would sing in this moment? How can we raise the stakes and make it even more important that this character has to fight to succeed? And like, no one is asking those questions and they're just like singing and dancing for no reason. When I teach, I talk a lot about how there's a real difference in a pop song and a theater song. That a pop song, and of course there's exceptions to every rule. The minute I say this, somebody's going to send an angry email about like, here's an exception. But in general, a really great pop song is meant to like tap into a feeling and let you live in that feeling for 3.5 minutes. It's either a like, I feel really good and there's 3.5 minutes of feeling really good, or I'm very sad and there's 3.5 minutes of that, or this is sexy and you like whatever it is, you live in that space. And theater songs are meant to go on a journey to get you from point A to point B. And so in the course of the song, something has to crack open or change or be discovered or be decided. So if you have a scene and then the song gets you from point A to point B, then you can pick up the scene and you're in a different place than you were where you were left behind. And so if the songs are not doing that in a musical, then I think, why are they here? Why are they on stage? They're just here to like show off some costumes and some dancing and some orchestration. And all of that is, to me, is in the service of the storytelling. And if you're missing the DNA of why the piece is on stage, then I would just rather go home. To answer your question really bluntly, there are those moments that I think, if this is what people want, I don't know why I'm in this business anymore.
Why do I bother?
If this is successful, then nobody wants what I'm selling anymore.
Yeah.
I will say, just to close this out, on the flip side, there are also musicals that are so good that I think I have to go home and write before I go to bed. I have to go home and write. Like, I want to be in that category. I want my name to be mentioned among those people. I want to do that. So long as the theater can contain both, I guess it evens out.
There's a balance there, isn't there? Like you said, as long as it's balanced, then there will always be some reason to want to stay involved. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've come up with, I guess maybe it's because of when we trained and why we're in the business. I don't know whether the business at the moment would be a business I wanted to join. I honestly don't know, because obviously, how am I going to find that out? I guess because I'm not the sort of singer that would be in quite a lot of the musicals that are out there at the minute. And like you said, the sort of pop musicals, we like to call them popsicles in our house. The ones where everybody's riffing for days and the choreography is something that I would look ridiculous doing. I think there's a massive audience for them and brilliant that they're there. But as long as you've still got the great storytelling as well, it's getting everything in the same world, isn't it, really?
Well, if all of the musicals were the same, the industry wouldn't succeed. If they were all popsicles, if they were only popsicles, then there wouldn't be enough audience.
It sounds so much better in an American accent, popsicles, than it does in a British accent.
Popsicles. But also, if they were all Sondheim musicals, there wouldn't be enough audience. You know, so long as there is space, and I think this is an economics question too, so long as there is space for all kinds to exist, the really inventive, creative, theatrical pieces and the big popsicles. And, you know, if someone's coming to, let's say, New York or London for 4 or 5 days and they can see a slew of shows and they get to see some of each, then that to me is a healthy industry. I don't want those musicals to be gone. I just don't need to work on them myself.
I have a friend who's coming out next week. He's seeing 9 shows. 9
That's
shows.
what they do.
I love it.
They come and see everything.
Yeah.
I just saw recently there's a show that has a Thursday matinee right now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you could actually see the Wednesday matinee, the Wednesday evening, the Thursday matinee, the Thursday evening, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Like,
that'll be what he's doing. That'll be exactly
Yes.
what he's doing.
It's like calculus.
And I'm going to live vicariously through him. I'm like, you have to WhatsApp me every night after you've come out,
Yay.
tell me exactly what. I feel like Broadway at the minute, this season is thriving. Maybe it's because I'm starting this podcast and I'm getting all this information from Instagram and the internet. But every week there's like 2 or 3 openings of like incredibly exciting shows. Obviously, Jason's being one of them. Last year, I was working on something that had come over from the States, and the American creative team was saying how much London theatre had bounced back from COVID, and they felt like New York hadn't done it to such an extent. But I feel like this season might be the one to change that, maybe. There's just so much excitement about it.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I'm a Tony voter, so I'm seeing everything right now. And it is this time, April and May is right now where we're recording, is when everything is opening because everything is trying to get in by the deadline for the Tony Awards. This is always the busiest time for the theater season. And so there really are lots and lots of openings. There also are many more limited runs in the theater than there used to be. And it is literally producers just filling the gap. So theater's not sitting dark. There might be 14 weeks between the close of the show and the opening of that show. A producer will put something in there for a limited run, and then that opens and it's Tony eligible. And sometimes you can get even bigger stars because their contract is only 14 weeks as opposed to having to sign on for a year. And so there's a lot more of that producing happening now. There's a lot of buzz this season. And I will say the things that I've seen already this year, I've seen many more shows that I thought were fantastic than usual. I often come home and I'm like, oof, oof.
Yeah, that's exciting.
This season, there's a lot that I'm like, well, I just think I saw something great.
That's incredibly exciting about the Broadway season this year. It feels buzzy and it feels successful. I just hope enough people going to see them that are going to keep them alive and thriving as long as they can, you know?
I hope so. I think it's good. Certainly it's good for New York. It's good for the theater. It's good for the trickle down of like what then turns into shows that are in the catalog that other people can do. It's good for the industry as a whole. I don't have any way of measuring it except anecdotally, you know, to be excited to be seeing it at this level.
Really exciting. For my next question, do you think there is any musical out there that has inspired you to make a big decision in your life or live your life differently? What musical do you think you've been to see that's come out and you felt changed in some way?
Well, I have the snarky answers like Sweeney Todd or like, you know, like that was when I started eating people.
Just putting them all in pies.
Let's see. I'll say there are a lot of musicals that I think the underlying thing is about being brave or like leaning into your truth. It's not so much that I think the musical inspires me to live differently, but that when I'm making a big decision, sometimes a song lyric will pop in my head. You know, I think about Move On from Sunday in the Park with George, or I think The Secret Garden is another show, you know, like that I love so much and that those song lyrics pop into my head all the time. I was thinking about City of Angels too as another one that, you know, I'm nothing without you, you're nothing without me, those sort of things. It's more like song lyrics pop into my head. And oftentimes I'll find that I'm singing a song in my head and I'm like, why is that song stuck in my head? And then if I really tune in and listen to it, it is telling me something about a decision that I need to make, or it's tapping into something a little bit subconscious that I hadn't quite identified yet. So I will say maybe in that way, but it's not like I live my life like Auntie Mame or I, you know, it's, I wouldn't say it's as black and white as that.
What would Auntie Mame do?
Have the party. Always have the party.
That's really interesting, the song lyrics thing. I mean, I guess people who are really into musicals, if somebody says something that is the cue for a song, you are going to go with that song and that'll be in your head.
Absolutely. I've had to restrain a couple times in this call. I'm just going right into the song lyric.
Yeah, I've done Grease a couple of times. This isn't because of any kind of change in my life or anything, but whenever I'm doing Grease and I'm in rehearsals for it, in my head, I come away and I've got the theme tune for the Muppet Babies in my head. Do you remember that theme tune? Muppet Babies will make your dreams come true. It was like always on a Saturday morning when I was a kid, but it's because it has the exact same...
We go together.
It's the same chord structure as We Go Together. And I cannot get it out of my head. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a Muppet Baby. I mean, it's nothing to do with like lyrics being inspirational or anything, but sometimes if you've got that chord sequence, you're like, oh God, now I'm there. I love that cartoon. It's like just a little mini Miss Piggy running around.
Anything with the Muppets.
Anything.
The fact that we're not all seeing the Muppets all the time everywhere is the tragedy of our decade. They should be everywhere.
I was thinking about it the other day. You know, people say, what inspired you to go into musical theatre? I think the Muppets were part of it.
I think so too.
That whole backstage drama, onstage concert, you know, it's
Yeah.
colourful and vibrant and funny and hilariously bad. But the pride that they took in their work was so brilliant.
Oh yeah, and you have the diva and you have the stage manager and you have the, yeah, for sure.
And the guests coming to the dressing room.
And the pianist.
Rolf, the pianist.
Ruff the
He was my favourite because his ears would go like that. For the listeners, I'm doing flappy hands if you know, if you can't imagine.
Gonzo, and yeah, everyone had a role.
Absolutely.
So so great.
And it was, the drama and the fun. Oh my God. So, how many people out there have gone into this business because of
the Muppets.
Miss Piggy and Kermit and the showmances and all that?
And what's the next generation's version of that? What is the thing? The Carol Burnett show before that, I thought the Carol Burnett show is something that was a variety show with song and dance and
maybe Glee. I think
Glee and Smash and yeah.
I think some of the musicals that we've had in recent times have kind of not even needed a TV presence. Things like Hamilton and Six. I think maybe it's the social media thing. They have just landed, and even kids who've never been to see Six, they know it. They know about it, and it's kind of cool again. So that's really fun.
Well, it is interesting to chart the ways that musicals and pop culture meet, and the people who are good at musicals at that level are also very in touch with pop culture. And I have a very classical music background. I think pop culture is just out of reach for me. It's there. I can see it. Sometimes I can touch it, but it's not where I live. And I am making my peace with that. I will not be the person who writes Hamilton ever or Six ever, but I can admire in those shows, both of them, the craft is exquisite. Those are both writing teams. I mean, writers or writing teams that understand the craft of musical. I know Toby and Lucy as well, and they understand the craft of musicals. They knew what they were trying to do. They were very smart about how they wrote it. It wasn't just I'm going to write some pop songs. It was what is the storytelling and what are we trying to accomplish with this piece? So the places where pop culture and theater culture meet can be explosively successful, I think.
That's what I love about Hamilton is I have no idea. I'm a show tunes girl. I'm like you, not in the world of pop culture much at all. And every now and then I'll be like, oh, he just said you've got to be carefully taught. Oh my God, that's South Pacific. And then there's that tiny little bit that he acknowledges is a tiny little bit of the last 5 years, I think.
Yeah, he sings Nobody Needs to Know.
Nobody needs to know.
There's just one line.
Whoa, hang on. And there's Camelot. There's a little bit of C'est Moi. It's just, I'm like, oh, he really knows what he's doing.
And it's all very intentional. He acquired the rights, he got the permissions, he wrote to Jason and said, is it all right if I use this? It was all very intentional. And in some ways, tipping his hat, I guess, to the musical theater world. And apparently, though this is not my art expertise, the same is true with his relationship in hip hop. The quotes, the nods, and the attributions to hip hop culture and history are equally valid. So that's what I mean about the meeting of the two worlds.
Yeah. So there's Easter eggs for people from both worlds. That's amazing.
That's right.
So speaking of this great craftsmanship, Georgia, my next question is the question I was chatting about earlier. What is the secret, if there is any, to a good musical, in your opinion?
The secret to a good musical. Wow, I'm just trying to come up with a quippy thing when Sondheim said content dictates form, and it just became everyone's mantra. For me, I think it's about clarity and creativity have to meet. That the piece has to know what it wants to be. It has to know internally, all the creatives writing it have to know what it wants, be able to say, your little elevator pitch, this is a show about blah, 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 or a character is trying to do this, as opposed to, well, it's sort of about the world and everybody. But no, it has to know what it is, and it has to be able to communicate that internally and then externally. The audience has to know what they're coming to see. And the world that's being built is clear, and the journey of the character, how do you know if the character is successful? Because the character told you what they wanted and then went in pursuit of it. So the clarity of it, that I think is so important. And to me, there's a reason why there are rules in musical theater. Not so much that you have to do them all by the book, but there's a reason why storytelling works, because we are cultured humans who learn how to receive stories in certain ways, and we know when expectations are met. And so that clarity is important. And yet, if clarity were the only thing, then we would all be bored all the time. We'd just be seeing the same show over and over again. So where that clarity meets with creativity, and the writers and the designers and the performers are all coming up with new ways to make you feel and see and understand, because they're pulling from different sources and putting their own personal creative spin on the clarity of that story. To me, that's maybe a convoluted way to say that the alchemy, I think, is when you have the clarity of storytelling and the creativity of storyteller meeting together in one big stew pot.
That's fascinating. Yeah. I love how, like you say, you can have all the clarity you want, but if it's not put across in a creative, exciting way, then it's just a documentary or something, you know.
Then you just read an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
But what is the way that we're going to tell the story?
That innovation.
And to me, it's like all the questions I was saying before, like, why is this a musical? Why would this character sing? You know, who is the character talking to and why? And are the characters engaging the audience or not? And is this a world where people can fly? Is this a world? Is this underwater? Is this, you know, what century is it? And is the music of the century? Is it the music of now? Any of those rules, the answer can be anything. But once you set it up, then the audience, you know, in the opening number, in the opening 5, 8, 12 minutes of the show, the audience is figuring out what the rules of the story are. And then they will go with you wherever you take them, so long as you stay true to the world that you've built for them.
That's brilliant.
And that's harder to do than you might think.
Oh, and then when it is done so brilliantly, it seems so easy. I think that's something that's really difficult about musical theatre and about how, you know, like you were talking about earlier about commercialism in musical theatre. I think because when you watch something that has been so immaculately crafted, it comes across so easily. People think it's easy to do. And actually, you know, I've done so many workshops on shows. I'm working on a new musical at the minute with some incredibly brilliant people. And I've never seen such intense attention to detail and commitment to changing. And we haven't even stood up on our feet yet. It's really fascinating to be there and watch the minutiae already being paid attention to, because it's hard, because it's really hard. And what I love about workshops is it's that great world where you can try things, fail massively, and then chuck it out and then start all over again with a different idea. And
it's amazing to me to think your writers had already done that work to get to the first day of the workshop. Like, I presume the script that they brought into you, they had already done all that detail work, and they brought in something thinking like, okay, this is it. And then all the life that the performers bring into the room and all the perspectives that the performers bring into the room informs the piece differently, and they have to calibrate. So I think that's why we call it a team sport. You know, like, you can write a thing that seems perfect on paper, but when everyone else breathes their own experience into it, it becomes something different. And the calibrating of that is what makes the rehearsal process so thrilling.
Yeah. So to be then in the final result, like you say, now you sort of leave a show once it's up and running, to then be in that every night is great because it works and you're on stage and it's lovely. But I actually find the process of that and the rehearsals of that and the tech and the changes, like I was saying with the previews in Mamma Mia, it's just so exciting that sort of by the time you then get in the run of it, you're like, oh, that now you just get in the routine and you do it, and it's live every night, and that's fun, but it's not quite as much fun as the building in the rehearsal room and on the stage. It's like you say, the team sport side of it is very fulfilling.
You know, I think that too. I have a conductor friend who hates the rehearsal process and just loves it when the run is happening and feels like they can make more music in the run than they ever can in the rehearsal process. I remember having a conversation thinking, I'm not sure I know anyone who hates the rehearsal and loves the run, because I'm usually around the writers and the people who love new musicals and they love the building of it. But I thought, oh, there's a whole other world of people who think that that's the drudgery to like build the piece and find the piece. And then once it's up and running, then they can play. I think there are actors that feel that way too.
Yeah.
And certainly if you're not the one creating the role, if you're just going into the role, you're having a very different experience than if you were the person who created it. But I just remember thinking, oh, well, theater, it's for everyone, I guess, because for me, once the show is running and it's doing the same thing over and over again, I'm a little bit like, okay, what's the next one? On to the next.
Is it maybe the stress that's involved that makes people enjoy the run of it? Maybe
the constant changes.
Yeah. And then you can settle into the groove, and yeah, I can get behind that as well. I get it, but I do love the stress and the drama as well. It's great fun.
But it's not us.
Yeah. So earlier on, we asked, what musical would have made you give up musical theatre? What musical out there feeds your soul? What's that other balance of a musical that makes you go, I'm going to go home and write more? Is there something that you put on to inspire you, to cheer you up? What musical would that be?
Well, I don't put on musicals to cheer me up, but I do have an answer to this question. And I often say it's my favorite musical. It's not really my favorite musical, but it's just a score that feeds me, is The Most Happy Fella
Oh, wow.
It's
Yeah.
a Frank Lesser score.
It's a great score.
The show is in 3 acts, and it's really a problematic show, but the score is so beautiful and so satisfying. Even the songs, it sort of flows in and out of song. It's not like the song ends and there's applause and then the scene, and it's more of a in and out, not fully through composed, but it's a little bit more like a through composed piece of musical theater. But there's somebody somewhere, and there's Mama Mama up in heaven, and there's Sposalizio. There's so much life and so much where you are, when you are, who the people are. And musically, it's so satisfying.
Standing on the corner.
Yeah.
watching all
Girls
the
go
girls
by.
I love that song.
Yes.
The harmonies are so satisfying.
Which is barbershop quartet, and then there's Italian tarantella, and there's this operetta, what we call legit singing, and it's such a masterful score. And I conducted it when I was at Summerstock on Cape Cod in that theater, and so I think I found it in a pivotal time in my life where it imprinted on me in a way that I find very special. So oftentimes I'll go back and listen to that score again. And so, like when we were saying, do you listen for pleasure or for learning? The answer is both, but I probably put that one on for pleasure and familiarity, and then I always do learn something.
Yeah, I had this great chat with John Weidman, which I couldn't believe I was having, to be honest, because when I was 18, I did Assassins, and that imprinted on me big time.
Yeah.
I did it in my youth theatre, which I guess is kind of a similar thing to camp.
You did Assassins at your youth theater?
We were all, he said the same thing. We were all 16 and over. Don't worry, it was like 16 to 21. But yeah, we did Assassins in like 94. And yeah, it imprinted on me. It now is up there with like all my favorite musicals. Probably that and Light in the Piazza are my top two. I can't pick between them. I love listening to it, and it just gives me that little bit of a nostalgia trip because it reminds me of being that age and being that person with all these dreams and ambitions. And when you find your tribe of friends that all feel the same way as you about what you care about, that's such an important thing as well. And actually, the Most Happy Fella, Mike did that when he was at college.
Oh, wow.
He was in it. Every now and then he does some sort of song about my feet, my poor, poor feet, or something like that.
Ooh, my feet. My poor, poor feet.
I remember thinking, what are you listening to?
Yeah, that's those of us in musical theater walk around singing those things just in normal life all the time.
Absolutely. So yeah, he had a great time doing that, and does always sort of say what a great score it is. So we do often put that one on in the car. It's juicy, isn't it? It's a juicy score.
It is.
It feels like you're getting a lot of vitamins in there.
I do like that kind of a score.
Yeah. What's coming next for you, Georgia? Where can we find you? What are you working on? I know you mentioned Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Yeah, I'm writing arrangements and orchestrations for that. I'm almost done with a new album. I have a new album that I will finish and release this year. It's interesting. It's theatrical art songs. They're all poems that I've set to music, and they are closer in the legit style, like more theatrical legit. It's not like suddenly we're doing German Lieder, but it's things that are maybe less pop and more vitamins, as you say. So that's almost done. I think I have just a few more recording sessions and then the mixing process and all that. So that's close. And then the other big piece that's been going on for a long time is that I'm writing an oratorio, a theatrical oratorio, which is a big piece for a few soloists and a big choir.
Oh, wow.
It is something I started before the pandemic, and then I sort of, like everyone, lost my way during the pandemic and thought, who's ever going to produce a big piece again? And now I have some new leads and some new ideas about it. And so I have to finish it. I would say it's about 2/3 of the way done, but it's an epic piece that I'm writing and hoping to get out there. So those are the big ones.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them, isn't there? I think is Harvey Milk. That's like a sort of oratorio.
Yes, it is an oratorio. That's right. Andrew Lippa.
And didn't feel like Lloyd Webber did a version of something like, we haven't had Lloyd Webber's Messiah, have we? But he did something like with Pia Jesu and something way back.
Yeah.
In the 80s when I was in school. There was something. Requiem.
There
we go. Aaron's just put a message up on the message board. Requiem, that's it. Oh, that's incredibly exciting.
There's a composer in New York named Heather Christian, and she's written a piece called Oratorio for Living Things, which is so special. It's just a wonderful piece. So that's another one that's come out. People are finding their way to them, but it is a tradition. Part of what I'm trying to do is when you think of an oratorio, you put a choir on risers and then soloists down front in formal attire. And how do you break that presentation open and make something that's very theatrical? theatrical and where the choir moves through space and the performers move through space, but it still structurally is an oratorio, not an opera, not a piece of musical theater. So that's what this piece is trying to do.
Wow. You do not shy away from a challenge, do you, Georgia? That's like, I am absolutely in awe.
That's how I wound up playing the tuba.
Yeah, exactly. Playing the tuba, running this incredible company that is going to, hopefully bring so many more people to visibility in musical theatre. And I just love that. They call it like a can-do attitude, don't they? But where's that come from? Where is that kind of that positive, yeah, I can do this. I'm going to write an oratorio. It's a bit for me like saying I'm going to run a marathon, because it's something I don't think I could ever do.
But if you wanted to do it, you would do it. I don't want to run a marathon either, so neither of us are going to do that. But I do think, what does a big musical experience feel like? What does it feel like to have all of those voices and an orchestra and these amazing soloists coming at you? And you can experience it musically, but you can also experience it theatrically. What is that? Sometimes I think a big idea is just a lot of little ideas that come together, that form together. I think of it the same way. A musical is really like a scene and a song and a scene and a song and a scene and a song. If I sit down and think I'm going to write a 2.5-hour theatrical experience, I might be too daunted ever to start it. But if I think I want to write a story about so-and-so, okay, well, how does it open? What would the opening be? What's the end of it? Where would intermission be? Who's the main character? What do they want? And by the time you've answered all of those questions, you've sort of found your way in.
You're there. You've got a blueprint for it.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Where can we find you, Georgia? You're on Instagram. I think actually you introduced me to Instagram all those years back.
Oh, are we that old?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I feel like we're just on the concert and there's a photograph. Found it the other day because I had to show my daughter a picture of it.
Yes.
And I knew there was a photograph because it was the Instagram conversation. Have you been on Instagram? This is where you put photographs. And you took a photograph of Cynthia and myself and Eva. And I was like, look, there's me. There's me with Elphaba. There you go. And thrilled to bits.
It's amazing. I mean, I have to say, when we were putting together talent for that concert, Alistair Lindsay Renton, who's my agent in the UK, sent me a list of names of people to consider, and Cynthia's name was just one of them on it. And I remember like looking people up on the internet, Googling them, looking the people up, and I remember writing and saying, oh, she's very special. Can we work with her? And he was like, yeah, maybe, let's see.
She has potential.
Famous yet. I mean, she wasn't famous yet. And so she and I did become friends. And then when she came to America, we connected there and I introduced her to Jason. And like, there's a lot of history there. But the thing about musical theater people becoming famous is that they're still people. Like, she's a person. Ariana Grande is someone we know. She's a person. And like, that was so name droppy. But, to see them having this unbelievable success in Wicked is thrilling because they're so talented and they're so hardworking and they're so deserving. But they're also just musical theater people whose path led them there. It is pretty astounding to watch.
That's what I love so much. I think I actually put something on Instagram or Threads or something where I said the absolute joy of Wicked, the movie. It feels like how I imagine people feel when their team wins the Super Bowl or something.
Yeah.
It's done so well and it's done so brilliantly and it's found its audience and it's so clever and so inspiring and it just feels like a big win. And we don't get a huge amount of them, do we, on the global scale? There's something like Wicked. It's wild. And I love the fact that Cynthia and Ariana are so into it and they're so geeky about it and they just tear up all the time. It just brings me such joy.
They're just theater nerds like the rest of us.
Yeah, just like us all. Just like us all. Well, sorry, this question was about asking you what your Instagram handles are so we can follow you.
My Instagram handle is just my name, Georgia Stitt, and my website is georgiastitt.com. And Maestra, if you want to follow Maestra, is maestramusic.org and maestramusic.org if you're going on the web. That's probably it. That's where you can find me.
I had Pippa Cleary on here, who is a young female
I know her.
composer, and she's like, we need to get Maestra over here. There has to be some kind of UK branch.
We have it.
Oh, you do?
We have it. We do. And I'll reach out to Pippa about that.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Maestra UK. We have a UK chapter, and there's a collection of composers and conductors that get together regularly. And it's always fun when the Fringe Festival happens in Edinburgh, because then in Edinburgh, they're like, we're not the same as London. Like the Maestra, like it's not just like we're all in the same place. We're in different places. So we're like, maybe we need a second chapter, a Scotland chapter.
You need a Scotland chapter, a Wales chapter.
And then a Wales chapter.
Brilliant.
But at the moment, we do have Maestra UK.
Oh, well, thank you. That's brilliant. I will pass that on to Pippa.
Okay.
And thank you again for coming on and talking musicals to me, Georgia. It has been an absolute pleasure.
That was great.
I could do this all night. Should we just stay all night?
Clearly.
I'll come up with some more questions. Thank you so much for listening today. This has been Talk Musicals to Me for the Bloop Network. My fabulous producer is Aaron Ware, and the music you heard is from the pen of the sublime Tom Self. If you get a moment, please subscribe or follow and rate the podcast by clicking the stars below on the podcast page. It takes about 2 seconds to do, and it will really help the podcast and its future life and would make us massively, eternally, enormously grateful. In the meantime, another huge thanks for tuning in, and please do so again next time to see who will be next up to talk musicals to me.